Hey everyone, today we're going to be learning how to apply and paint your foam latex prosthetics. So first thing I like to do is just pull off any extra bits that are going to create harsh edges to make the application process just a little bit easier. Now that my piece is completely ready to go, I like to do something called a dry fit, which is just testing to make sure that I know exactly where the prosthetic's going to go and how it fits exactly on the face. Once I'm happy with where the prosthetic is going to go, I like to clean the skin just to prep for a nice surface for the adhesive to be able to really grab onto. So I'm just using some really gentle toner on a cotton pad. This just helps remove any extra oil or dirt that's on the skin, which might interfere with the adherence of the prosthetic. Once the skin is clean, we are ready to go with using our good old Prosaide. I like to decant it into a dram cup, and I have the talent hold the cup for me, and then just taking a cotton swab. I like to start from the center of the face whenever I do a forehead application. Starting from the center is just having a nice anchor point, and then I like to work my way outwards from there. And once you put down the Prosaide, make sure that it dries completely before you start the application. If the adhesive is still wet and you try to lay the prosthetic on top, it's not going to stick. Now that the adhesive is dry, I have the talent lean their head back slightly so that I can lower the prosthetic down and use gravity just to kind of hold it into place. And then I lightly tack it in the center where I had put the Prosaide down. When it's anchored on, just kind of make sure that it's not being set lopsided at all. Make sure that the brow is sitting in the spots that it's supposed to be, and one side's not higher than the other, or the anatomy and the realism that we're trying to do is going to look off. Now I'm just continuing to add adhesive and working my way outwards in different sections. I'm just bouncing between the left and right side to make sure that my prosthetic isn't going on crooked. Really take your time laying down the prosthetic. The adhering part of it is one of the most important parts, especially the edges. So pay attention to where the edges are. In this case, it is around the eyes and the outer edges. So just make sure it's kind of really tacked down and your edges aren't kind of curling underneath themselves and they're laying flush to the skin. Here I am just taking the backside of a makeup brush and kind of just rolling the edges over onto the skin very lightly. And in any parts that I do need to push a little bit more, I'll use the soft side of the brush. Make sure that you have enough glue extending outwards and away from where the edges are so that they are able to just roll and lay flat and then stay down on the skin. I'm leaving the edges along the beard kind of unglued just because I'm going to be laying hair on top. But now that my prosthetic is completely down, I am taking a bit of Prosaide Cream and I'm going to start blending any edges that aren't completely flush to the skin. Using a metal spatula, I'm just going to start laying it down. You can see that the edges here are a bit rough. There's a bit of shadow and a bit of a step in between where the prosthetic is compared to the skin. The top part of the forehead isn't going to need as much work just because it's laying really flat. And that's something that we're trying to achieve here. We want to be able to disguise where the prosthetic ends and where the skin begins. This is a very key skill to have under your belt. This is something that takes time and patience, and it's really important to just figure out how to get your edges seamless. After using the Prosaide cream and a little bit of water to blend it out, and it's completely dried, I'm just taking a piece of textured orange sponge and I'm just going to stipple this over all of the edges on the prosthetic from the edge and then over onto the skin. This is kind of just creating illusion of pore texture, and it's just going to fool the eye into thinking that the prosthetic is part of your skin. Moving on from the outer edges, I'm going to start working on the eye edges. Now, you don't always have to go in with Prosaide Cream around the eyes if your edges are laying flush, but I did kind of have a big step here. This piece was not made specifically for this person's face, so I'm going to have to go in and kind of make certain adjustments. If you do use Prosaide Cream around the eyes, it's important to use a little bit of translucent powder over the top once it's dry. Otherwise, when your actor opens their eyes, their eyelids are going to stick to themselves, and this is not something that we want to do. It's just uncomfortable for everyone. Taking straight Prosaide, I just have a ripped up textured sponge, and I'm going over the entire prosthetic. Once your Prosaide is dry, I'm going to be using a mixture of packs on top of it. And these are just some pre-mixed packs colors that I'm going to mix together to match the talent's skin tone. Again, using a ripped up sponge, I'm just going to start dabbing the packs all over the foam latex. The Prosaide and packs layers just seals the foam latex so that you're able to put more paint on top. If you didn't do this, the foam latex would soak up any paints or colors like a sponge, and you would just have a muddy, horrible piece that won't accept paint. Here I'm just showing you where the edges, I'm taking packs that's thinned down with water and bouncing between the skin and the prosthetic. It's important to thin down your packs if you're going to be blending it out onto the skin a little bit, just for easier removal. Once the packs layer is completely dry, we are able to go on top with alcohol activated paints or rubber mask grease paint. Taking my rubber mask grease paint palette, I'm going to use this all over the prosthetic, specifically around the eyes. You kind of want to stay away from using alcohol activated palettes around the eyes just because it can create a lot of sensitivities. Try to also stay away from using creams as opposed to rubber mask grease paint, as creams can kind of break down foam latex throughout time. Here I'm just painting some added Prosaide transfers that was shown in a previous demo, so you can kind of mix and match different prosthetics to get your final look. When I am close to being done my prosthetic, I like to spatter a bunch of different colors on top, and then I'll go back in and fill in any extra little details. You can use a variety of different techniques. Trying out different types of brushes is really important. I suggest trying out using your airbrush as well. Normally I would do that with an application, but unfortunately my son was asleep and the compressor is a little bit loud. You can use a variety of stencils with airbrushes, and pre-painting your piece is also an option, which I will go over in the lecture prior to this video. Now I am taking some crepe hair that I am blending together using a variety of different colors, and then I'm just folding it in half and snipping it to create a nice clean edge. And I've laid down Prosaide onto the talent, and you can see here it's kind of blunt, and I'm going to use that to start to cover the edge that I had that I couldn't blend into his beard. And I'm just pressing the hair down onto the dry Prosaide, and it's just going to stick there. And then I'm tapping it lightly, and I'm going to do this along the entire beard line. Here I'm adding something just a little bit extra, which is called mouth effects. This is something that you can put into talent's mouths just to quickly change their teeth appearance. It's kind of minty and it's mouth safe. Another option for getting this effect is using Skin Illustrator palettes and just wiping the teeth dry and using minimal alcohol, and then you can paint the teeth up to change what they look like. This is the final look. I have added extra prosthetics on the top of the head utilizing Prosaide transfers, and I've done some modeling, and I've taken my time to really hide the edges and make everything as seamless as I possibly could. Now that our makeup is complete, it is time for removal. I am using Telesis Super Solve, which is just another name brand on the market. Isopropyl myostrate is also a really good one. I believe that y'all have the Prosaide remover in your kit, which works just as well. So to begin your removal process, try to find an edge that's kind of lifted and then work the product slowly down in underneath the prosthetic so that it's meeting the skin. Take your time with the removal. Don't pull on it. Always check in with your talent if it's okay, and take your time slowly working the product underneath. Be mindful of your talent's eyes, and it's always nice to have baby wipes on hand just to remove any excess adhesive. If the option is available to you, it's also a good idea to have a warm, wet cloth to offer your talent so that they can finish the removal themselves at a way that is most comfortable for them. If there's any extra bits left over, you can remove with warm, soapy water. Sometimes it's nice to also offer some toner, cleanser, and moisturizer. Here are some examples of more foam prosthetics. I'm super stoked to see all of your final products, and good luck on your practical exams.